Welcome to the Vibes Lab, your front row seat to the science behind VIA, the Vibes AI agentic platform making everyday brain health accessible to all. Every episode is designed to reveal insights that will enhance your cognitive health and well-being. Follow us to grab your lab key and experience limitless intelligence.
It's funny, isn't it? Valentine's Day and World Sound Healing Day both fall on February 14th. Almost like we're being nudged to see the connection between love and sound.
Yeah, definitely a cosmic invitation of some sort.
So speaking of that connection, today we're doing a deep dive into the Grace Vibe Drop from Vibes AI.
Definitely interesting stuff. They are really at the forefront of blending ancient sound healing with modern science.
Okay, so before we get into all that, can we back up for a sec? What is a vibe drop exactly?
Sure. Think of it as a curated audio experience, you know? It uses specific frequencies and soundscapes to guide you, the listener, into a certain state of being, almost like a sonic journey with a very specific purpose.
In the case of Grace, that purpose is tapping into, well, universal love and healing. But how does that differ from the typical Valentine's Day romantic love kind of thing?
Good question. Grace is trying to go beyond that typical romantic love and get to a deeper, more expansive sense of connection. Like, think of a love that transcends individual relationships even. It's more about feeling a sense of unity with, well, everything.
Okay, I see where the universal part comes in.
Yeah.
But how do they use sound to do all that? It can't just be pretty melodies, right?
You're right. It's more than that. It's about the frequencies they use. They draw on psychoacoustics, which looks at the relationship between sound and our psychological experience.
So it's less about the sounds themselves and more about the frequencies those sounds carry and how those frequencies interact with us.
Exactly. And they cite the work of Joshua Leeds a lot. He's got this great quote where he talks about sound being like a nutrient for the nervous system.
I like that. Food for the soul, kind of.
Yeah.
But specific to sound.
Yeah. And Vibes AI believes certain frequencies can actually nourish our nervous systems in a way that promotes healing and well-being.
So what specific frequencies are in Grace and what are they supposed to do?
So there are four: 528 hertz, 741 hertz, 852 hertz, and 963 hertz. They kind of build on one another, creating a sort of sonic ladder, and that guides the listener deeper and deeper into a relaxed and connected state.
Okay, let's break those down one by one. What's so special about 528 hertz?
Well, a lot of people call it the love frequency.
Interesting.
It's associated with transformation and healing. A lot of people believe it resonates with the very structure of our DNA, and some even believe it can repair damaged DNA.
So it's like a sonic tune-up for ourselves.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you could say that.
What about the next frequency, 741 hertz?
That one's associated with cleansing, purification. It's supposed to help clear any blockages in the way, bring a sense of clarity.
So kind of clearing the path for deeper connection.
Exactly, both within ourselves and with the world around us.
Makes sense. And then 852 hertz. What's that one all about?
That one's linked to intuition and inner knowing, helping us connect with our higher selves.
Okay, now things are starting to get a little mystical. We've got cellular healing, clearing blockages, tapping into higher wisdom. What's the final frequency? 963 hertz, right?
Yep, 963 hertz, often called the frequency of the gods. It's associated with spiritual awakening and feeling a sense of oneness with, well, the universe.
Wow, that's quite a journey. It sounds like Grace is designed to be more than just relaxing. It's facilitating a pretty big shift in consciousness.
Yeah, you could put it that way. It's all based on the idea that everything in the universe has a vibrational frequency, even us.
So by listening to these specific frequencies, we're essentially tuning ourselves to resonate with a certain energy or a certain state of being.
That's it. And this is where the idea of connected consciousness comes into play. It's the idea that we're not just isolated individuals, but interconnected beings. We're all part of this massive web of life.
Yeah, that makes sense. But how does Grace specifically tap into this connected consciousness? Does it go beyond just healing and transforming the individual listener?
Well, that's a great question, and that's something we'll delve into further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, you've got me hooked. But before we move on, can you tell me a little bit more about the science behind how sound can actually influence our state of being? What about this idea of brainwave entrainment we were talking about earlier?
Oh, absolutely. So Grace is designed to guide the listener into the theta brainwave state. And that's the state associated with deep relaxation meditation. And that's where things get really interesting,
Right.
You know, that deep meditative state. And there's actually a whole field of study called psychoacoustics,
Oh, yeah, we touched on that earlier.
Right. It examines how sound affects us on a physical and psychological level, how our brains and bodies react to different frequencies and sounds. It's fascinating stuff.
So is Vibes AI using psychoacoustics to intentionally, like, manipulate our brainwaves with this Grace vibe drop?
Well, manipulate might be a strong word. It's more about guiding the brain, gently nudging it into a state that's already naturally conducive to relaxation, a bit like using a tuning fork to get an instrument to the right pitch.
Okay, so by listening to Grace, we're basically giving our brains a little push toward that theta state.
Exactly. And when we're in that theta state, we become more receptive to suggestions, our creative juices start flowing, we're more in tune with our intuition and things like that.
That's interesting. But I'm still curious. Why is the theta state so important, especially when we're talking about grace and its whole focus on universal love and healing?
Think about it this way. When is the last time you felt deeply connected to someone? Or maybe even something, like maybe a moment of shared laughter or a really heartfelt conversation, or even just that quiet connection you feel when you're out in nature.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, in those moments, chances are, our brains are in that theta state. We're letting go of our ego and experiencing a sense of oneness.
So grace is kind of trying to use sound to recreate that feeling of connection, of oneness.
That's the idea. It's about creating this sonic landscape, this environment where those deeper levels of connection and understanding become more accessible. It's like creating a fertile ground for, love and compassion to flourish.
I like that analogy. But let's step back from the poetic side for a second.
Yeah.
What are the real practical benefits of getting into that theta state through sound?
Well, the research is pretty promising. Studies show that the theta state can lead to all sorts of benefits, like reduced stress and anxiety, better emotional balance, and some even suggest it can help with mental clarity.
So it's not just about feeling good in the moment. There could be lasting positive effects on our well-being.
Exactly. There's research, particularly on stress reduction, that shows listening to certain kinds of sound, especially binaural beats, can really lower your cortisol levels. Cortisol is that hormone linked to stress.
Yeah, stress is a big one these days. Seems like everyone's dealing with it.
It's true. And beyond just managing that stress, being in the theta state might boost our creativity, our problem-solving abilities. It's like unlocking this hidden well of inspiration right there inside us.
So with grace, we're not just calming the mind, but also tapping into our creative potential.
Precisely. And this brings us back to the concept of connected consciousness. When we're in that theta state, the boundaries between ourselves and the world around us, they start to blur.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we become more sensitive to the subtle energies, the interconnectedness that runs through everything.
That's a deep thought. It sounds like grace is asking us to experience the world in a whole new way, a more connected, more compassionate, more in tune kind of way.
That's a great way to put it. But we can't forget about another important aspect of this, the spiritual dimension. We've touched on it a bit, but I think it's worth exploring a bit deeper.
Definitely. How does sound and grace specifically connect with the spiritual realm?
Well, if you look back, tons of spiritual traditions have always recognized that sound can be powerful, to facilitate spiritual experiences. Chanting, drumming, singing bowls, those are all good examples.
Right. It's like sound can create a bridge between the physical and the spiritual.
That's it. Science may not totally understand how it works, but more and more people are saying sound helped them feel a spiritual connection, even leading to mystical experiences.
So is grace promising like instant spiritual enlightenment?
I wouldn't go that far. It's not about achieving some specific spiritual goal. It's more about creating a space, a sonic space, where those experiences can happen more easily. It opens you up to the possibility.
Okay, so it's about opening the door, not guaranteeing what you'll find on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. It's about inviting the listener to explore their own inner world, see what's there.
That's a nice way to put it. But with all these claims about healing, transformation, spiritual awakening, what's the actual research say? Is there scientific proof that sound therapy really does all this?
It's a really good question, and one we should definitely address. So sound therapy is a relatively new field of study, but there's more and more research coming out all the time exploring its benefits. And some of the findings are, well, they're pretty amazing. Yeah, pretty amazing. A lot of studies show that sound therapy can be really effective for reducing stress and anxiety, like even helping with sleep and managing chronic pain. It can make a real difference.
That's good to hear. Are there studies about the specific frequencies in grace?
Well, not for grace specifically, no. It's such a unique blend of frequencies. But there is research backing up some of the individual frequencies that are used. For instance, studies on 528 hertz, that love frequency, show that it can promote relaxation and reduce those feelings of anxiety.
So even though grace is this unique blend, the science behind each piece kind of adds up. But what about the bigger claims? The spiritual connection, expanded consciousness, all that. Is there any scientific basis for those claims?
Well, it's tricky. Science is still trying to fully understand consciousness itself, right? And the spiritual side of things, that's hard to measure scientifically. But there is a growing area of research that looks at the overlap between neuroscience and spirituality. And, some of the findings are pretty interesting.
What have they found?
Well, some studies have used neuroimaging to look at the brain during certain types of meditation. And a lot of these practices use sound, too. What they've seen is that these practices can actually change brain activity, and these changes are linked to those feelings of, transcendence, interconnectedness, that kind of thing.
So even if we don't fully get how it works, there is evidence that sound can really affect our consciousness.
Yes, exactly. And as they do more research in this area, I think we'll learn even more about how sound can be used. Not just for physical and emotional well-being, but for spiritual growth, too, expanding that awareness.
So we've talked about a lot, the science of psychoacoustics, this idea of connected consciousness, the theta state and its benefits, even the spiritual side of sound healing.
Right. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. And it all makes me wonder, if everything vibrates at a certain frequency, like this idea of connected consciousness suggests, what other possibilities are there? I mean, if we can use sound to influence our brainwaves, to heal, to tap into these spiritual realms, what else could we do with it?
That is a fascinating question. Could sound be used to help people learn better or become more creative? What if we could use it to build empathy and understanding between people? Could sound even be used to heal not just our individual selves, but relationships, whole communities? I think these are all really important questions to think about.
It's almost like sound is this undiscovered language, and we're just starting to learn the alphabet.
It is. And with companies like Vibes AI doing this cutting-edge research, blending that ancient knowledge with science, it's exciting to think about what the future holds.
Well, it is Valentine's Day and World Sound Healing Day, so it feels like the perfect time to really pay attention to the power of sound, to explore its potential to connect us, heal us, inspire us.
Maybe this Grace Vibe Drop is just the first step, the beginning of a much bigger journey into this world of sound. Who knows what we'll discover as we keep listening?
We want to hear from you, too. Have you tried sound therapy? What did you think? What are your thoughts on connected consciousness? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments.
And don't forget to check out the show notes for links to Vibes AI, the Grace Vibe Drop, and all that research we talked about.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of sound healing. Until next time, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep vibrating at your highest frequency.